Hi, I'm Allison Spurrell from Les Amis de Fromage. Thanks for joining me today. We were going to have a little chat about Piave. Piave is one of my favorite firm cheeses. This one's from Italy, from the north in the Dolomite Mountains. And it's a DOP designated cheese, so kind of like our friend here, the bottle of champagne. It comes from a certain region, has to be made in a certain way, and that's what the DOP designation is. So, for example, it has to be made with cow's milk, it has to be from this region, and the milk has to be collected from that region for the cheese to be able to be called that. And a lot of times with Italian cheese especially, you'll see that the name is actually stamped right on the rind. So I don't know if you can see that very well or not, but this one actually just says Piave, and so it'll say the name of the cheese, but it won't say the age of the cheese. This one is called the Piave Vecchiu, so this is, you can see the label a little bit here has red and yellow. We have a Reserva as well, and that one has a little bluer label. So why I wanted to talk about Piave today is because we decided we would have a bottle of champagne. Lots of you are celebrating with your dads because it's Father's Day, so we thought, what a good reason to have champagne. When I was 10, I went to Europe with my family. We went camping through Europe for a very long time. It seemed like eons and eons, but one of the things I remember very well is we stopped at a champagne house, and a very nice young man who was one of the brothers who ran the champagne house had lunch with us and couldn't understand why I didn't want to have champagne. I was 10 at the time. I thought, that's a little much for lunch, champagne. And he insisted to me that there was no time that wasn't a good time for champagne. And so I kind of remember that still. It seems like a good rule. So any time is a good time for champagne. So I'm sure lots of you have opened champagne many, many times, but I thought I was going to not do it on air. And then I thought, well, let's do it and we'll chance it. We'll see what happens. So the little cage that is under this top is keeping all the pressure and the cork in the bottle. So you need to take your foil off. And so then you have the cage, which you have to twist to loosen and take that off. I should have had a cloth handy, shouldn't I? No, I've got one here. All good. So I'm sure somebody who did this all the time for a living would be much more coordinated than I am, but normally I just use a cloth, and you want to use your thumbs and just sort of press around the cork to let it out quite gently. You don't really want it to go flying across the room and break a light or hit somebody's eye. The idea is that it sounds very delicate and ladylike when it comes out. We'll see. Now that I've said that, it'll probably make a terrible bang, or I just won't be able to get it out, which is the other thing. Maybe I'll try it without the rig. That's why here we go. So then once you feel it going, you kind of want to hang on to it. Oh, there we go. Not as quite as it might have been, but that's okay. All right. So, and then the other trick is you want to pour against the side of the glass. You don't really want the wine to all bubble up, because then you're losing all the beautiful bubbles. And you want that as part of the texture of the wine. There you go, Joe. One for Joe, one for me. All right. So this is 2008 Veuve Clicquot. Cheers, Joe. Cheers.
Cheers.
Delicious. So 2008 was a great champagne year. And so there was quite a bit around in the market for a little while in the last year. Joe's been scouring the wine stores and buying extra champagne because, as we discussed, there can't be too much champagne. And so we thought, well, what a fun time to open one, celebrate the great quality of the 2008 vintage, and talk about what you might serve with champagne. Normally, you can have champagne all throughout dinner. I think that's a fabulous idea. I think we should start doing that right now. Practice our princess abilities by having champagne just all the time. But quite often you would serve champagne before dinner, and you might serve it with canapes or appetizers if you were standing around chatting with your guests before you sat down, or maybe out on the balcony if it was a nice day. Today looks like it might rain, so today might not be the day. And I was just thinking about things you might serve. Normally, if I was serving Piave, I would just probably serve it on its own. I wouldn't really serve it with crackers or bread. You really don't need it. It's a hard cheese. The Piave Vecchiu in particular, you can sort of see, I've cut it with a knife rather than on the wire as we use at work. You can see the side is cut really cleanly, and that's because I cut it on the wire at work. I cut it with a knife. It's tough to get through. It's a hard cheese. The crust is very firm. So normally what I would do is just cut a piece and kind of chop it into pieces so people can just kind of grab one, help themselves. It's a little bit of an awkward one to cut with one hand while you're grabbing a glass of champagne with the other. And then because the cheese is really firm and has great kind of fruity, clean flavors. You know, most cheeses have a little bit of sort of earthiness or a little bit of bitterness just from the way the cheeses are aged. And this one really amazingly doesn't. It just tastes so clean and fruity that it goes with a lot of wines. But in particular, it seems to bring out all the beautiful taste in the champagne always, or whatever sparkling wine you're drinking. Could be Cremant, it could be Cava or Prosecco, it doesn't matter. Or something delicious from BC. And so I think I would just serve it as is, and normally I would serve something really simple with it. I have a dish of olives here. To be honest, I might not have served these olives. These are olives I had in my fridge for making martinis. These are stuffed Divina olives, which are great for martinis. They taste so good. But probably I might have done just a plain, maybe Picholine olive, like just a plain green olive, something that's kind of crunchy and a little bit nutty. And then don't forget, if you're going to serve olives that have a pit in them still, which I think is totally fine to do, because they tend to be a little bit firmer texture. Once the olives are pitted, they lose a little bit of their body. So if you're going to serve ones with a pit, you just need to remember that you need to put a dish out for pits. So something, I have one hidden back here, something small and kind of innocuous, but that's still handy for people. So, you know, they're not sitting there with a pit in their mouth, not sure what to do with it. And then another fun thing, like this is a great time of the year for just vegetables, if you're so lucky as to have a vegetable garden or not and at the store, like fresh radishes or you know, new carrots or something like that, and just something really simple, because really you don't want to mess with the champagne for before dinner. You could certainly serve foie gras or something delicious like that as well, but if you just are trying to keep it simple, just a few vegetables, olives, maybe a few nuts. Yeah, pecan shortbread, Joe says that's true. Pecan shortbread and champagne are very delicious together. And something like that, and keep it really simple. I think the great thing about Piave is it's the kind of thing you can have in your fridge and you can do lots of things with it. You could grate it and use it like on pasta as you would something like Reggiano or Padano, but really it's a table cheese and it just has so much flavor. I think it's really nice with charcuterie things because it holds up to it. It's sharp enough that it can still stand its ground, and just lots of flavor, and so nice to have kind of hanging around. This one wasn't hanging around in my fridge. I brought it out with that purpose in mind, but definitely an easy thing to serve because you don't really need to have too much to go with it. So hopefully all of you are enjoying your Father's Day with your family. And thanks for joining me, Allison from Les Amis de Fromage. And cheers. Have a good one.